Hey there, Better Moody's. This is Better Peace, finally back at it. I don't know about you guys, but holidays really kicked my butt. And finally, here we are at the new year. So, happy 2026. I went to a really cool New Year's party. It was like a masquerade, a black and white masquerade, so I got to wear this really cool mask that had like feathers on the side and wear these cool boots. Never really get to dress up much, so it was pretty sweet. But yeah, Happy New Year. Glad that you made it just like I did. Somehow, once again, another year behind us, and the time just keeps flying by. So I was just taking a moment to reflect on a class that I'm in at work. I am most recently training to be a SWAT nurse, and the SWAT nurse is like the code team leader. They respond to all the rapid responses and traumas that come in, and code strokes, and are just a resource to other medical staff throughout the hospital. They'll call the SWAT nurse for consultations and things like that. So it's pretty cool. And in order to train to this role, I had to take the trauma course called TNCC. And it's a lot of information all crammed into like 2 days. And then the testing is that is like we have to run a trauma ourselves. So we have the mannequin and all of our tools. They're laid out, and then the instructor gives us a scenario, and we're expected to follow a specific protocol and do certain interventions based on whatever they tell us is going on with the patient. So super interesting, really fun. Thankfully, I passed, so that was good. It's a little bit nerve-wracking having to present in front of everyone, but then the test was just in private. So although obviously in a trauma situation, nothing will be in private, but all of that doesn't matter, because when you're in the midst of a crisis, there's all hands on deck, and everyone knows their roles and what to do. So I was just thinking about trauma in general. I don't know about you guys, but it is the start of the year, so I hate to start off talking about trauma, but I started thinking maybe it's actually a good place to start, because I think facing trauma is really important for healing. I was just thinking about the trauma patient. So the trauma patient could have been in a car accident, a work accident, a burn accident, a fall, who knows, but something traumatic that could happen to any part of their body that now we have to try from the point that they're brought into the ED to start hopefully stabilizing and fixing. And I just thought about all the trauma that, all of us have a lot of trauma in our hearts, in our lives, maybe things that we haven't even addressed. And one of the things that we were scored on is if we addressed all of the issues with the patient when they're brought in. And it just had me thinking on my drive home that in my own life, I have all kinds of traumatic things that I probably am not really addressing. And the problem with not addressing them is that then we can't heal. And not only can we not heal, but there might be more damage done. One of the ER nurses, who was our instructor, told a story of a patient who they brought in after stab wounds, and they started CPR, so they're doing compressions on the chest and just following the algorithm for advanced cardiac life support, and the patient did not make it, but then when the patient was rolled, they discovered that there was a knife in their back, so not good. And it's just, they talked about, awareness, like our own, trauma can not only be like weighing us down and need to be addressed, but it can actually be causing damage as we're just like going through the rhythm of life, going through the steps and the protocol. that we think is what makes our lives whole, or whatever we feel like we need to do to keep going. And in fact, there's like a knife in our back, and we're not addressing that. Now, I mean, the reality of that situation is the patient was already not doing well. So sorry to the non-medical people. Those stories are hard to hear, hard for medical professionals ourselves to deal with, but I feel like that is the reality of trauma. So not to shock you here at the start of the year, but I just want us to open up our hearts and minds to the idea that trauma is hard to face. But if we don't face it, then it can only weigh us down or harm us more or become a greater issue down the road. And that's how patients present. You know, if we don't scan their head and find out that there's a bleed in there, then the bleed is only going to get bigger, and it's only going to cause more problems, more complications. So, in thinking about trauma, I know that I myself will be like, you know what, I need to face this and I need to deal with this, and I'll journal about it or think about it for a little bit, go to a little bit of therapy, do some self-care, and then try to be like moving on. But the reality is that just like our bodies have to heal physically, emotionally, and mentally, so do our hearts. So if we take the time, and I want to encourage you to start journaling. I love to journal. It's such a great way to help get things from our hearts and minds out into the open, kind of like mining, you know. It's like the more you keep digging, the more you keep writing, the more you keep talking it out, the more you discover what's in there. So I want to encourage you to journal this year, and as you do, to recognize some key elements in your life, things that you feel like you need to address. So I've made a list of 3, and these are my 3 bigs. So my 3 bigs for 2026, and my hope is to continue to address my 3 bigs, rather than, you know, touch on big number 1 for a little bit and then forget it, come back to it, but to try to be aware of the 3 bigs and bringing information and tools that can help address those things. So the reality is that physically, if, for example, we just were to think of a traumatic brain injury patient, someone who has hit their head and it is now an injury that has lasting effects, you know, their body can heal in like 6 to 12 months fully, but unfortunately there are usually continued issues and problems associated with that traumatic brain injury for years and years to come, whether that's physical functioning of the body, or the way that the person thinks and is able to process information, their ability to speak, find words, and even personality changes. And everyone has to live. They have to live with those changes. Their family has to live with those changes. It's a big deal. It's traumatic. And so, you know, they don't just like take a pill and then they're fixed. Instead, day after day, they have to face the reality of the trauma and then deal with it. So I want you to think of your 3 bigs, and I want you to deal with it this year. Not just one time, not one journaling moment, not going out to drinks one night, not one prayer, but I want you to write down the 3 bigs and each month reevaluate. What am I doing about my 3 bigs? These 3 things that impact my life the most. These 3 issues that I need to surrender, that I need to change, that I want to see improved on. So feel free to comment on what your 3 bigs might be, or bigs that you might want someone else to chime in on, bigs that you can talk to your therapist about, bigs you could talk to your children about, your husband, your spouse, your wife, your partner. I just want you to think of your 3 bigs and make sure that you write those down somewhere, wherever that may be. If you're not a journaler, you could put it in your notes on your phone. You could tack it up on the wall. These are my 3 bigs. And what resources or tools am I bringing into my life that I can help to grow in these 3 areas or see change in these 3 areas. So I hope that you guys are having a great week. It's only Wednesday, where it's supposed to be, and it's awfully warm here in Colorado, but I hope that the weather is lovely wherever you're at. I mean, I can't really complain about this warmer weather, despite the implications, but I hope that the week goes better and better for you.